Welcome back to Checkmate with Blake. I've had a lot of comments in the last few days asking me to create a video on how to deal with pinned pieces in chess. Pinned pieces, as we have on the board here, is something that is very common and you encounter in many of your games. Yet many players, from beginner all the way to advanced players, struggle to deal with the pin. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys a free masterclass. I have 5 different examples. I'm going to teach you when you should push the H pawn or the A pawn, when you should play the bishop move, and when you should play the knight move. Additionally, and if you stick to the end, after we master those first ideas on when to play one of those 3 moves, I'm going to give you 2 additional positions that further give you guys more tactics and ideas on how to deal with pins. Because pins are something that, again, many people struggle to play against, but if you know how to play against the pin correctly, you can use the pin to your advantage. As this is a masterclass video, this video will be a little bit longer, and how I've decided to set this video up is first we're going to analyze the pin. First, I'm going to give you guys 3 questions that we're going to look at on how to analyze the pin, and then once you understand the pin, I will give you 3 different key options on how to deal with it. And by just following these ideas and rules that we have related to the pin and our response to the pin, the idea is that you guys will be able to just know the move by just simply understanding the position better. Because I think that's what this kind of boils down to is a lot of players fail to really understand what the position is and the response that we should play to it. Again, this will be a longer video, but if you find this video helpful, please leave a like. It'll again help kind of promote the channel, help promote the video. It'll help a lot. And if you don't mind, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you want to join the community that we have here, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you guys on this channel. We'll go ahead and get started. This is actually lesson 2, so we're going to go to lesson 1. But before we go into lesson 1 here, I'm going to give you guys the 3 questions that you need to ask yourself every single time that you become pinned by the opponent. So the first question I want you all to understand is there a real threat? And we're going to break down all these positions, but you need to first look at, is the pin an actual threat? Are they creating a threat by creating this pin? And if the answer is no, then I'll show you guys some responses that we can do to weaken their position. But if they do have a real threat, you will have to acknowledge it, and you'll have to play one of these 5 ideas I'm going to give you. The second one is you need to think about, where do you want our pieces to be? Where do you want your pieces on the board? Another way to think about this question is, what do we want the position to look like? And that's a very, very important one, so don't forget that. The last one is, does the trade help us develop? Obviously, in the opening, development is key. So we have to kind of think about, if they do this trade, will it help us develop? Will it help improve our position? Which kind of relates to number 2. And the 3 key options or key rules that I'm going to give you guys to respond to these pins after we understand those first 3 questions is, first of all, I'll break down these concepts. Firstly, the pawn move encourages trades. Now that may seem obvious, but the reason you want to play the pawn move after we answer these 3 questions in each position is because if we play the pawn move, we want the trade to occur. We're encouraging the trade. So I'm going to give you guys examples of where we want the trade to occur. The second one is, the bishop move weakens the pin and develops a piece. So you want to play this move if you want to utilize the long diagonal and the weak squares on the board. And the last one is, the knight move weakens the pin and develops a piece defensively. But you want to play this move if you want to maintain the knight's positioning on the board. For example, such as knight f3, or if you want to try and control these squares as well. So the knight move is a little more passive, but there are definitely examples in which you want to play the knight move. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. In this first position, first we're going to answer the questions. Is there a real threat? Yes, there is a real threat. They're threatening to take this knight, and after we take back, for example, they would win this pawn. But after we look at this position a little further, we start to understand the threat is not actually there. Because if we look at it, let's say they take here, we'll just go ahead and play a move. So we play the move h3, encouraging them to trade. Okay, so is there a real threat? First, let's look at that. If we take, and they do decide to take this pawn, notice it's actually checkmate in 1. There's your first hint. We might want to encourage this trade. Okay, secondly, let's look at, where do we want our pieces to be? Obviously, if our queen develops to this square, as I just showed, we're creating some serious tactics. So obviously, we want our pieces to be here. We want the position to look like it does on the board. And I will show, even against our best responses, why we want the board to look like this. The last one is, does this trade help us develop? Obviously, it does bring the queen to f3, so it does help our pieces develop. So therefore, and I'll go ahead and go all the way back here, this comes out of the Italian opening. And after we play this move d4, they pin our piece. Knowing that, since we want to encourage this trade, knowing that there is not a real threat that they have in this exact position, and knowing where we want our pieces to be, it tells us that we want to play the move h3 because we want to encourage the trade. Now, again, if they take, obviously, they know that it's checkmate, so maybe they're going to play this move, knight f6, which is the best move. So this is another reason why we play h3, because this resulting position is something that we want. Now, if we continue with our plan, such as d5, if they go here, for example, knight b4, which looks like a fairly strong move to create a fork, we can play this move queen b3, going ahead and attacking this and also looking at this pawn. Their only safe move here is to actually go to a6. We give a check, and after this series of trades, which are all some of the best moves here, we are completely crushing. So, therefore, they cannot play that move. Instead, they have to actually go back to knight e7. And now, obviously, this is why we want to encourage the trade. Because in this first position, this is a very favorable position for us. We love this, so we play h3 to try and encourage it. Now, you may ask, if we go back, well, what if they don't play that and they instead go bishop h5? Well, here, another reason why you can play h3, and this only really occurs in the first example, is because we have an additional option of g4. Now, if you're a beginner, I want you to understand that you don't want to just play g4. You don't want to just blitz it out, because your pawns can never go backwards. Don't forget that. That's a very key concept. Okay, so in this position, let's say that we continue with our plan and play d5, which is actually the best move. If they were to go here, because this is actually something I think they'll play. Notice it isn't an accuracy, but I think this is a human move. Now the move g4 comes in. They'll throw in this check here, and after their bishop runs back, we now have a queen developed and a bishop developed, and their bishop is not really doing much, and we're threatening to play h4, h5, and even trap this bishop. So this is a position that we want, which is why, in this first example, why we play the move h3. On to the second one. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about not a pawn move. Now, of course, in this example, especially if you look over here at the analysis, there are a lot of options you could play. Of course, we're in an opening. But in this example, we're not playing the move h6 because I'm going to illustrate a second concept to you guys. Now, you could consider actually one of these three moves here. One of these three moves, all of these would be okay, but you have to understand the position that we have here. So by them playing this move here, playing this this bishop to pin our knight, they've weakened the square on b2. Furthermore, if we could have a bishop here on f6, we understand that we would have a very strong control of this diagonal. So, knowing that we want control of these dark squares, and also maybe we want to play the move c5 at some point, or maybe we want our queen on b6 to look at these weak pawns, we need to utilize the weak dark squares that they have. Knowing that, you should actually play the move bishop e7 here. This is one of the ones I recommend in this example. And we're doing this because we want to encourage the trade. We're actually weakening the pin if they do ever decide to take it. I'll go ahead and show that. If they ever take it, notice now how we are really controlling the dark squares. I mean, even if they play a move like e3, you're also going to be looking at c5 at some point. So you're going to really try to play these moves like queen, c5, maybe queen b6. You really want to attack the dark squares. So, of course, they do not want to trade it. So you're actually saying, hey, your pin is helping me because I wanted my bishop on e7 because I'd like my bishop to move potentially to f6. Now, they're probably going to play a move like e3 here. And you might think, okay, well, what's so great about this position? Let's say we castle and they play a move like bishop e2. Well, now we can play the move h6 because, as I said, we notice in this position that we like the trade. We want the trade to occur. Now, again, if they trade it, we want our bishop here. So most likely they'll go here. Here's the second hidden resource you have by playing a move like bishop e7. In this position, I'm not saying this is the exact best move you should play, but I'm trying to illustrate this concept. Let's say you go knight e4, and now they decide, of course, we're double attacking their bishop, so they're forced to trade here. Let's say they go down this line. Of course, notice the engine says it's not a best move for them to take here. Let's just say they develop here and we trade down, and we go into position similar to this. By having our queen on e7, simply because our bishop was on e7, now our queen is actually attacking these dark squares, which is exactly what we want. This was our whole thing we were trying to achieve, is we are dominating the dark squares. And actually, notice the position is zeros across the board. Even though we're playing black, we have reached a perfectly equal position by simply dominating this pin and understanding this pin did not really weaken our position. In fact, this is kind of what we wanted. We're actually prepared to get our rook over here to develop our knight. We're going to have a very easy game by simply playing the move bishop e7 in that pin. Now the third one here, sorry, I'm giving you guys a little bit of a preview. Let's go all the way back here. In this one, they play a queen's gambit, and we go into a Slav defense. Now here, we're in the semi-Slav, and they decide to pin our piece. Now, as I said, since I'm trying to cover each concept, I'm not going to play one of these moves. In this position, I'm actually going to show you guys where a knight move makes a lot of sense. Again, the knight move weakens the pin and develops a piece defensively. Play this move if you want to maintain its placement on the board. Another concept to think about, where we want our pieces to be, maybe we don't want our bishop here on bishop b7 in this position. Maybe we're preparing a bishop to come here, such as to b4. So in this position, you can play the move knight bd7. This is actually one of my favorite openings. We're kind of transposing a little bit into a Cambridge Springs defense, which I do have a video posted. Go check out that video on my openings playlist if you want to see it. But now after a standard move like e3, all of a sudden we play this sneaky move, queen a5. Now the pin does not exist, because if they ever trade here, first of all, our knight now comes to the exact spot it was. We've maintained its placement on the board. But now there's also no pin because our queen is gone. So this bishop is like, what am I doing here? The bishop is looking at nothing. So the bishop is very poorly placed. We have dominated this pin. We have won against the pin in this position. We'll go ahead and continue. They play a move like queen c2. Now we play the move bishop b4. This kind of shows the strengths of the knight move, because this knight is kind of preparing us to push one of these pawns if we choose to. But also, like I said, if they capture, we'll capture back here. But the knight is also kind of controlling the center of the board too. It's a little bit more defensive. But our bishop is now able to go to bishop b4 because we did not pin with the bishop or push the h-pawn. So in this position, again, this is a Cambridge Springs. I'm going to show you guys. So we'll take here. After they take back, we have a brilliant move, knight e4. Now their pin is horrible, okay? Because, like, first of all, we have so much pressure here. Now you may say, okay, first of all, what if they just capture our free knight? We take here, and now we actually have a fork. Now they may say, I don't want to lose my rook, so they'll go up here. Well, now we can take the free bishop. And if we go back again just a little bit, let's say that they instead castle. Well, now we can actually take a whole piece here. So we can use the knights to kind of decide where we want to put our bishop, especially if there's tactics that we understand. Now the last two, as I said, are going to start kind of breaking some of these principles, but teaching you guys a little bit more advanced concepts as well. So now you know when to push the pawns, and you know when to play the bishop or the knight move. But in this example here, which is very, very, very common, they play this move bishop b4, pinning our piece. And the last lesson, or sorry, the fourth lesson that I want to give you guys is that development is key. So in this example, we have to first, okay, let's go ahead and go through our questions again and kind of assess them. Is there a real threat? Yes, they are pinning this piece, but there is no real threat because we're playing the Queen's Gambit. And if you understand the theory, you know that even if they trade down here, which I will show, so let's just say we'll play the move bishop g5. Because I'm kind of take a step, but I'll say that we play bishop g5 because we're focusing on development, because firstly, we realize there's no real threat because we understand this position, because we're playing the Queen's Gambit. We should understand it. And we know where we want our pieces to be. We would like this position that I'm going to show you, the resulting position that will happen. And lastly, does the trade help us develop? Well, in this example, of course, the trade does not help us develop specifically right here, but we did develop a bishop. So we can ignore their threat because they have no real threat, and instead focus on our own development because we will like the resulting position. I hope I'm making sense with this. So again, if they trade down here, I'm going to show why we want the resulting position. Now we have an open file for our rook. Now let's say they capture this pawn, d takes c4, and we can now throw the move e4 up the board. Now if they play h6, because they don't really understand these principles. I mean, of course, they think, okay, maybe we should get rid of our bishop. They're just trying to get rid of the pin. But again, this resulting position helps us. By not responding to their pin and creating a pin of our own, now we can take here, and after they take back, tempo their queen. After the queen goes back, we play here, and we have a dominant position. By simply understanding that their pin does not have a serious threat and that we actually want the resulting position. Now the very last one here, I know I'm giving you guys previews as I go through these, I guess. But this last one is, I want to ask you guys, is there a real threat? Now, this comes out of the Ready Gambit, my favorite opening. If you guys know my channel, you know I like this opening. I actually have 2 different masterclasses posted on it. But in this position, they play bishop g4. And I'm going to give you guys a test here. So go ahead and pause the video. Now that you understand 4 of these different principles I want, I'm not going to tell you guys the exact move first. I want you to think about this position. Do you want to play the move h3? Do you want to develop the bishop? Or do you want to play a different move? Well, if you play the move bishop e2 because you think, okay, maybe we want our bishop on this long diagonal, right? Didn't I tell you guys that we want to control the long diagonal? Well, in this position, it's not actually perfect because they have this move d3. And you cannot capture because the queen captures, which forces you to play bishop f1. Of course, you have a stable position. You're at 0.35, but this is not a position you want to play. And there is a better response. So again, let's go back. Let's answer the questions first and try to decide if this is something we need to really worry about. Is there a real threat? Well, not really. There's not really a real threat here. I mean, what are they threatening? If they capture this here, let's just say we play, I don't know, a random move and they capture, it's not all that bad. Sure, they'll probably develop knight c6, but maybe we play the move b4 and we have a very strong position. I mean, I see no issues with this, so there's no real threat. Also, it would help us develop, and our queen wouldn't really be bad here on f3, so maybe we should just let them. There's no real threat. But since we acknowledge that there is no real threat, if you guys remember back to the very first stage, I said if there's no threat, then we don't have to respond to their pin. Instead, we can play our own moves in this position. So we actually can play this move queen a4, and we're going to find that their pin actually hurts them. Because if they go back here, they've moved their bishop twice in the opening, and now after a move like queen b3, we're attacking this pawn and already asking questions and threatening to capture this pawn here on the board. So obviously their pin actually hurt them. So instead they might say, well, I want to maintain my pin, and let's say they play a move like knight c6. Well, now we can take the pawn, and their pin has actually done so much damage to their position. Because we acknowledge there's no real threat, we've been able to actually control the board and make the most out of the position. So again, those were the 5 different those were like 5 lessons that I utilized, the 3 questions that you can ask yourselves, but also the 3 responses, playing with the h-pawn or the a-pawn, or playing with the bishops or the knights. So I hope this kind of, increased your knowledge on how to deal with pins. Again, if you found this video helpful, please leave a like. It helps the channel grow. We'll do a quick summary. Again, the 3 questions. Is there a real threat? Where do we want our pieces to be? Also, what position? What do we want the position to look like? Or 3, does the trade help us develop? And once you know those, then you want to utilize, do we want the trade to occur? So maybe we play the move h3. Do we want to control the long diagonals? Then we play the bishop move. Or do we want to kind of preserve our development? Maybe we don't know where we want our bishop to develop, or maybe we want to maintain our knight development on f3 or c3, so we play with the knight move. Again, if there's no real threat, we don't have to respond. We can play our own tactics. Or, as I showed in lesson 4 here, sometimes it's best, if there's not a real strong threat, to just focus on your own development. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, feel free to do that. Again, I'd love to have you guys in here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I know it was long, and I do apologize for that, but I want you all to understand how to deal with pin pieces. I hope you guys did find some enjoyable parts of this video. I hope you found this helpful as well. Let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see in the next video, and thank you guys so much for watching.